Welcome to the Recovering Perfectionist Podcast, where I empower you to develop sustainable habits, challenge society, and take messy action. I'm Christine, life balance coach and world champion ballroom dancer, and I believe that everyone has the power to create their very own life by design. The Recovering Perfectionist Podcast was created with a mission to encourage a life of abundance by finding peace and acceptance in our own imperfections and developing healthy self-love through sustainable habits and manifestation. It's time to align with the universe for the full human experience and redefine what it really means to be successful.
It's too good, the secret is out and wow.
Welcome back to another awesome Sunday. I am so excited to be here with you guys, and I hope you're enjoying these episodes. I am definitely enjoying just speaking to you guys and not having to edit a whole lot. This is truly the Recovering Perfectionist in real time. It's really, really cool. So anyway, today I'm going to be a little bit of a life update just because my life is absolutely crazy right now. But I'm also going to discuss 4 major lessons that I've learned in my life that I feel everybody should learn, or everybody should know, at least. They've been extremely important in how I live my life and helping me to understand how to do things just more efficiently and better and just all of that. So I definitely would like to share them with you. So we will start first with a little life update. Let's see, this is airing. So in 1 week, we will be, my fiance and I, who you met last week on the podcast, Noelle, will be moving to California, which is crazy. I never ever thought that I would be moving back to California. I lived there when I was 21. It was crazy, awesome experience, but I did not think that I was going to be moving back. Go figure, pandemic hits and here we are. So we're really excited. We're moving. Wedding is coming up. Very excited for that as well. We are planning. And business is good. I'm working with so many incredible clients right now. Noelle's business is booming as well. He's building something brand new, which is so exciting. It's always fun to see things from the start and see how they can blossom. And my clients that I'm working with right now are just teaching me so many things about just how to be better at what I do, but also just a better version of myself. And I love being able to make such an impact on people and help them acquire just better habits, systems. I just love giving people information that has helped me enormously in my life that I feel a lot of people don't have access to. So that is a great segue into today's episode, which is the 4 major lessons that I have learned in my life that have really changed my life, that have been a huge impact on my life and allowed me to do all of the incredible things that I've been able to do. So let's start with lesson number 1. Don't make yourself so accessible. This one is I have to be honest with you because I am a recovering perfectionist, and perfectionists tend to make themselves very accessible. This one in particular is one that I think I just realized how to master in the last probably 6 months. Yeah, for sure. Making yourself accessible. So I like to look at it as it's so hard because society programs us to be kind and don't be selfish and help thy neighbor and all of those things. But I think where society doesn't explain is the balance and the boundary setting between helping thy neighbor and being a good person and being there for your family and friends, and also just respecting and honoring your space. Because what happens is that you're one person and so many people ask you for things, and then you have a partner and then you have kids and then all of these things happen and you end up creating all these responsibilities around you and commitments that now you have on your plate and you can't get out of, or you think you can't get out of. And you want to honor those commitments, but you kind of just said yes all the time so fast because that's, because most people are good people and they want to help and they want to be there. And, or it's things you actually want to do. But a lot of times it's things you really don't want to do, or they don't line up with your values, or they don't line up with how you want to structure your day. You just feel like, well, my kid's on the soccer team, so I feel like I should sign up and be one of the soccer moms, or I, my husband has a work thing, and so I need to be there at his work thing. So there's all these little commitments that happen, and it's kind of like the space between everything, and all of a sudden, all your time's gone and eaten up. So I kind of like to use the metaphor of like feeding the neighborhood cat. So like if you feed, everyone knows this, if you feed a cat, like he'll keep coming back to you. Um, and so people like me, I'm not a big animal person. Please don't hate me for that. But I'm not the person that's going to feed the neighborhood cat because I don't want him at my doorstep every 5 seconds. So I was not taking that advice in my real life, and I was accessible to everyone and saying yes to everyone because I wanted every opportunity and I wanted to make sure people knew that I was a go-getter and I was a hard worker, and eventually I just wore myself too thin and I just couldn't be there for everybody. So the lesson I learned is don't make yourself accessible to everyone. And for multiple reasons, this is important, is because just like the cat metaphor, if you're accessible to everybody, then they know that they can always come back to you. And you're the first person they're going to call. Even if someone else is better suited for the job or someone else is closer, they're going to call you and say, hey, can you help me move this weekend? Because they know that you're going to probably say yes and you're going to be available and you're going to do the job right. And so that's the thing, is that I had so many people come to me all the time saying, oh, can you book this flight for me? Can you do this? Can you do that? And they knew I would get it done, and then I felt obligated, and then it's just like this terrible cycle that you can't get out of. So by constantly being available, people know that you are, and they won't stop coming, because it's like, oh, well, just do this one more thing for them. But that's not really how it works, because now they know that you are the person that is reliable and that is always going to pick up their phone. That's another thing. Don't be too accessible. Don't always pick up your phone. Don't always text. Don't always be there. But then in business, I feel like that's what has set me apart, is I'm a quick reply, right? I'm the person that's going to get back to you very quickly, that's going to be efficient, that's going to, when I say I'm going to do something in 24 hours, I do it in 24 hours. So that has been a fine line for me to understand, of how to create that balance of not being so accessible so people are reaching out to me on my days off or on family days, but also being a great business person and someone that people want to work with because they know that you're the person that's going to get things done. So I I will be honest with you, I'm still trying to figure out that balance 100%. I think I'm pretty good right now, but I definitely feel like there's room for improvement there. But yeah, and the second thing is, on the being accessible thing, is my brother's really good at this. My brother is an actor in LA, and he has this, in Hollywood, there's kind of this like air of mystery. If you're not really readily accessible, people kind of look at you as you are you know, you're a special person. It's like, oh, when he gives me time or when he's available and comes and sees, like, it's a really big deal, versus when someone sees you all the time. It's not that big of a deal. So I've kind of learned from him a little bit, and he doesn't do it purposefully, or maybe he does, but at the same time, I feel like that's just kind of who he is he just definitely values his time a lot, and I've definitely learned from him on that, to just make sure that you are giving your time to the right people, that are really truly seeing the value in what your time holds. So, yeah, so that's lesson number one. Lesson number two, less really is more. So that's not a lesson that we haven't heard before. It's kind of a societal cliche, but the way that it's played a role in my life is in a couple of ways. I would say the first thing I can think of is in material things, in stuff. Noelle and I, we travel a lot, And as digital nomads, essentially, we have places here and there, but essentially we're really always on the move. And when you're always on the move, having a lot of stuff is really inefficient and really a burden, honestly. 2020 was a very interesting year, as it was for most people. And we ended up getting rid of our apartment at the beginning of the pandemic because we were going to travel to Europe. And some of you may have heard this already on my past episodes. And we were trying to decide we didn't think it was going to last that long, like everybody. So we didn't get an apartment right away, and we were kind of like living with family members all over the United States. So we were basically living out of like 2 big suitcases, and we had all of our stuff from our apartment that we kept, the furnitures, the TVs, things like that we didn't need because we were living in other people's homes, in a big storage trailer. And we really didn't touch that stuff for like 8 months, honestly. We'd pop in there every now and again and be like, oh, I need to grab that, but that's it. So essentially, you start to realize, oh, wow, I'm really not even living with that stuff. That's just stuff that like we have because we had an apartment. So we were furnishing it, we had dishes and stuff like that. When you're in someone else's home, you use those. But then we would travel, you'd stay with my dad, and then we would travel to somewhere else to stay with a friend, and then we would even live on less because we left stuff with my dad. So it's like you start to realize, oh man, what do I really need to survive? Like, what's the bare minimum of what I actually need? Like your toiletries, a few outfit changes, um, maybe some books, my podcast mic for sure. We're big people on like laptops. He's got his camera equipment. Like it's more business stuff, I would say, or hobby related things. But yeah, you start to realize like, what do I really need to survive? Like society tells us we need all these things. We really don't. And I think I've always known that. But then when you start to like put it into action, you start to really see how much you really use on a daily basis or a weekly basis. You're just like, wow, like less really is more. It really is. Because when you have more, sometimes it's more maintenance or more upkeep, or it's just almost more of a burden, depending on how crazy your life is, you know? For us, it's more of a burden. And the other area where less is more that fits in to my life that I've learned and why this is such a valuable lesson for me is in projects or in just how I present myself to people. So, like I said before in the first lesson, I'm the person that's going to reply pretty quickly. If a client asks me for something, it's done. I let them know it's done within 24 hours. I'm pretty readily available, except on my days off. I've created those boundaries for myself, which I've learned in lesson 1. Don't make yourself too accessible. But at the end of the day, how I present myself and project myself is pretty above average because I'm always making sure that they have what they need. Like I follow up, I make sure that, I send extra photos if they only want a few. I make sure I always do extra. And sometimes that can be a little bit of a burden. Not a burden, but like you start to put a lot of pressure on yourself. This is where the recovering perfectionist comes into play. And you create a standard for yourself, and then you realize, oh, if you didn't achieve that day, or if you didn't have a day that was productive, then that's not your standard. But at the same time, when you think about the average standard of the world, a lot of like, who are we comparing ourselves to, right? It depends on what you're trying to achieve. For me, I'm comparing myself to someone like Elon Musk or, who knows? Like all these people that are achieving all these things every day. And I'm like, I feel like I'm behind. But really less is more because people are seeing already that you are going above and beyond and even following up and responding to an email within a matter of 10, 15 minutes of receiving it is already way above average compared to the normal person. So even if I waited an hour or 2 or 3, that's still going to be pretty above average because most people, they respond within a day. And so just understanding that like I can put less restraints or constraints on myself to create all of this need for efficiency and fast pace and all of that stuff, because that's the pressure I'm putting on myself. The client on the other end, or the business person on the other end I'm working with, or the coworker, will probably not notice it at all. And so always to make sure that, give a great package, but just know that sometimes less is more. So sorry, that kind of went a little wordy there. I was just trying to find the right way to explain it in my life, but I hope that resonated. Okay, the third one. This one is cool. This one is one I actually learned through my dad. He learned it from someone and then he passed it on to me very quickly. So I've kind of been, I've had this one in application for many, many years. Don't give away information that doesn't benefit you. So when someone asks me, like, what's the best advice you've ever received, I would say that's probably like either the first or second thing I say. And here's how it applies. So basically, don't give away information that the other person doesn't really need to know, that won't work in your favor. It doesn't mean that you're lying. It doesn't mean that you're withholding information. But like a perfect example is if someone asks you to do something, and say someone asks me to, do a website or something like that, or a social media, start an Instagram for them. That's a good one. So someone asked me to start an Instagram for them. Whether they're paying me or not, the idea is that they are paying me, I don't want them to know that it's really, really easy for me. Like, that's not a hard thing to do. It takes 2 seconds. I can just get it up and running. It's no big deal. But I don't want them to think that I spent hours and hours and hours on it either. But the idea is that by saying, oh yeah, no big deal, don't worry about it, it almost puts me in a position of not having the power to create more, because all of a sudden they think, oh, well, if that's no big deal, then I'll just give them more stuff. Or I don't need to pay them that much because it's really not that big of a deal for them, right? So it can just work very much against you to give people information that a lot of people call it like word vomit, and it's like know when to stop. And just it's really about analyzing before speaking. And I will say that when it comes to like Noel and I, like, he is definitely the one that thinks before he speaks, and I don't often. When I'm in a business meeting, I think a lot more. But on the day to day, I'm more of like, oh, I said something, and then it's like, oh wait, well, I didn't mean it like that, or whatever. And so I kind of like backtrack. But when I am thinking in a professional setting, I'm always making sure that any information that will work against me, that is not important for them to know unless they ask, then I'm not going to volunteer that information, because it may give me a smaller salary. It may give me a lower pay. It may give me less opportunity. It may show them a weakness that I wasn't necessarily wanting them to know. And it's kind of like the concept of, like, even if you think your nose is big, some people won't see what you see, because we're our toughest critics. So if you don't point out the imperfection, or like in dancing, we always say, if you don't look like you made a mistake, nobody will know you made the mistake, because nobody knows your routine. So it's that concept. That's how it's really applied to my life, is like, don't show people the mistake that you made, because 9 times out of 10, they probably won't even notice the mistake if you just keep going. And so, yeah. So I hope that makes sense the way I said it. But I think the reason it's hard to explain is because it can apply in so many different areas of life, of making sure that you are always shining yourself in the best light and not intentionally showcasing your weaknesses, right? It's just like you go into an interview and they say, well, what, they say, like, when they tell you to go into an interview and they ask you, well, what do you feel like your weaknesses are? Basically, your weaknesses need to become your strengths. So if anyone's trained you to be in an interview, then they'll say, tell them that you are not as much of a team player, in the sense of like, I like to be in control, so I'll make sure it'll always get done. But that doesn't necessarily mean that, Like, that's not really a bad thing because they know, oh man, this person's reliable, they're going to get it done. But the weakness is that you're not really a team player because you're not going to be doing it with everybody else, but they do know it's going to get done. So it's like, that's kind of like perspective based on um, if it's a strength or a weakness. And I think that's kind of where the don't give away information that doesn't benefit you. Just always shine yourself in a positive light and just self evaluate real quick in your brain before you start word vomiting and telling people things, and just be like, if I tell them that, can they use that against me later? Or is that something that is really that important that I'm just going to be showcasing something that they don't even see in the first place, and we can just move past, or something like that. Yeah, or that they can, like I said, use against me later, or they can adjust my pay based on that, or the opportunity might not be there, or they might see me in a different light, in which case we won't collaborate the same way. Those are all questions I ask myself when I'm communicating and networking with people and connecting. Okay. All right, final lesson, which I think is so, I like to end on this one because I think it's so where the world needs to go right now, and I think it's where the world is going. Kindness is rare. Use it to your advantage. So, what does that mean? Because it sounds a little, use it to your advantage sounds a little selfish, but that's not where I'm going with it. Essentially, kindness is rare. Like, as much as maybe we don't want to say that or we don't want to hear that, it is. It just is. When you think about day to day, when you're going like into the coffee shop, or you're driving and someone cuts you off, or someone doesn't hold the door for you, or whatever, like how your day to day goes when people could actually be more self aware. True kindness is rare. Someone grabs a cart for you. Like, when was the last time that happened, right? So kindness that goes out of your way to really like show a stranger or someone that you care, and you're aware of your surroundings enough to know that they need maybe something that you could assist in. So the way I like to look at it is, and my dad has been doing this since, oh my gosh, I can't even remember when. At first it was really embarrassing, and now it's just really funny. But every time we go into a restaurant to eat, we sit down, the waiter comes by, and the first thing, after the waiter introduces himself or herself, the first thing that my dad says is, "Perfect. You're exactly who we came to see. We saw it in the newspaper this morning that you're the best, waiter or waitress at this restaurant, and we're here just to see you." Right? Now, obviously, they know that's not true, but how amazing to hear someone say that to you. Like, what a great icebreaker. Like, they already are like, oh man, this table's going to be fun. You know what I mean? There's already this just joy of energy across the table. And now they want to go out of their way because they're like, this table's fun, and they respect me and they care, and they're not going to be a pain in the butt. So now when they're in the kitchen, they're thinking, oh, that table needed water, right? And let me go grab them some water. Like, even if it's something they're already going to do, they're going to do it faster probably than if it was just like another table, right? Because they're like, well, I have a bunch of other tables. But when you want to go back and see that fun table, you're going to, make sure they have a good time, or make sure that, or you just, maybe it's even deep, like not that deep. And it's just like, they know they're going to get a good tip because they're like, oh, this table's fun. If I go above and beyond, then I'll get a good tip. And that's fine too. Like, honestly, the idea is for everyone to have kindness around and for everyone to have a good time. And that's why my dad does it. And they have a good time. We have a good time. We get to know each other a little. We get good service. We respect them serving us. It's an all around great experience. And that's just one example. There's so many other examples. We ask people when they check us out at Target or at Walmart or a grocery store, how are you today? How's your day going? Like, how often do you interact with the people that are serving you? That's kindness, like, those people have lives. Those people are human. They have, struggles just like the rest of us. And sometimes they need someone to ask them, how are you? Instead of them always saying, how are you today? Did you find everything okay? Like, they're programmed to say that. But once you ask them how they're doing, It's like, oh my gosh, like, people don't ask me that. Thanks for asking, you know? And some people have said that to me. They're like, thank you for asking. But here's where it kind of switches a little bit. Like, kindness is so rare sometimes that, like, people have thought that, like, when my dad does it, like, they're, like, women, like, he's hitting on them. Like, they think that because they're like, well, why is he so nice to me? And that's where it's like, oh, it's agitating because it's like, wow, like, kindness is so rare. Like, you don't get people asking you how you're doing, that when someone does, you think that they're just hitting on you or they want something from you. They're not just purely genuine with their actions. But that is rare. I don't want to bring that up, but it is, it does happen. But I would say just, be that person that it does not take that much extra energy to create kindness around you. And that is just basic law of attraction, manifestation. If you are putting out good, good will come back to you. Also, you're just happier. When you make people happy, you're happier. You can't like not smile when someone's smiling. And you know that you were a part in that. Like even just telling someone, "Oh my gosh, I love your dress today." Like it's become so natural for me that I don't even think about it. When I see something I like, I just spit it out. I don't think, "Oh, I really like her dress," but I'm not going to tell her because we're in public and it's weird. And I don't even know her and she doesn't know me. And like, I feel like people go through all of these things in their head and then they never give the compliment. And it's like, wow, that could have been a really nice moment. And so when I feel something, I just run with it. I just go and people actually like, they care. They're excited, because it is that rare. And so I think like my challenge to you is like, let's make it not rare. Like, let's create acts of kindness from a genuine place every single day. And you'll see like the repercussions. It's not to get something in return, but you'll see that is a natural effect of doing that. When you put out good, the good's going to come back, and then everybody's happy. It's just a really cool, um, you know, boomerang effect, essentially. So, yeah, so to recap, let's just recap here. 4 lessons that have really helped me in life. Obviously, there's so many more. Like, I was even going to put some stuff in there about planning, but I would love to do an entire episode just on like how to plan effectively and execute a plan. And so that, less stress and all that stuff. Like, there's so many things that have helped me in my life that allow me to just move through the world in a very efficient and a very joyous way and not feel like I'm always having to abide by society's template or rules or check boxes that I don't want to check and all these things. So the first one is don't make yourself so accessible. And honestly, I feel like this one came majorly from the book Essentialism. I will constantly, I will continually push this book. My business coach, Ross Johnson, shout out to Ross Johnson, he's amazing, turned me onto this book. It is phenomenal. It is a life-changing book. You have to read it. It's called Essentialism, and it's all about the disciplined pursuit of less. So again, the first 2 really kind of tie into that. Don't make yourself so accessible. So don't constantly be, um, you know, saying yes to everything. Sometimes saying no is just honoring yourself. And you'll see people will start to, I think this is the biggest thing with that too, people will start to evolve and change around you when you start to set boundaries and limits. And we think, oh no, it's going to be the worst thing ever. Like if I don't answer my phone and I miss my call, they're going to, then I can't help them with that one thing. And then you end up calling them. And it's like, oh, it's fine. I figured it out. No worries. And you just stressed for no reason when they could have figured it out. And they did. And also, you're enabling them by constantly being there and being like, I'll fix any problem that you have, or I'll be there when you need to vent or whatever. And I'm not saying don't do that, but don't do it where it's disturbing your peace, right? Do it when it feels like you can actually give them a genuine energy from yourself and not sacrifice your peace. And then the second one is less is really more, and that's the same thing with essentialism. Like, we don't need as much stuff as we think we do. We don't need, as much, just all the things, like even producing. Like, you don't have to feel like you have to produce all of these things in order to be successful. Like, do what you're really good at and just own it and do great at that. And that is what will be, you don't have to be like, oh, I have to be on the PTA and I have to be this and I have to be chairman of this. And it's like that's not really that necessary. Do the things that align with your value system. And then don't give away information that doesn't benefit you, right? That's just, again, don't paint yourself in a weak light. Don't say something or volunteer information that was probably never going to be asked of you in the first place, in which case now they can use it against you. It's really just protecting yourself and your space, and making sure that you are, giving the best side of yourself. And then the last one, kindness is rare. So use it to your advantage. If you are the kind person and you're the one that's going to go above and beyond and get, that cart for that person, or hold the door, or, compliment someone or whatever, like, the universe will reward you for that. And people will reward you for that. And obviously we're not doing it for the reward, but that's a nice bonus, like, they're joyous, I'm joyous, like, it's a win-win all around. So spread more love, spread more kindness. It's all a wonderful, wonderful thing. So I hope that these resonated with you. I hope, like, already I can hear it. I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, I should have explained that better. I should have done this. Like, but again, that's the recovering perfectionist in me. And for my fellow perfectionists out there, this is how we're doing it now. We are just recording, we're speaking, we are just feeling the energy in the moment. And I know that something that I said is definitely going to resonate with someone. It's going to be something they need to hear, and I have to trust in that process. So I hope that you guys had a wonderful week. I hope you guys have another wonderful week coming up, and I will talk to you guys very soon. Thank you so much for listening to the Recovering Perfectionist Podcast. I'm Christine, and if this episode resonated with you or spoke to you in any way, please feel free to share. I absolutely love hearing from you guys and your thoughts about the topics based on your experiences. And also, if there's anything you want me to talk about, just screenshot this episode and share it on social media with your comments. Your feedback really helps me to curate episodes that best serve you. If you have time, I would greatly appreciate if you could leave a review wherever you're listening to this episode, whether on Apple or Spotify or any other platform. I'm wishing you a blessed week ahead, and remember, perfection doesn't exist. Take messy action. Healthy habits keep us balanced, and you are enough.